Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's been a little while since I've done these LinkedIn lives, although I guess I should say just live in general, since we are simultaneously streaming on YouTube and Facebook because technology is awesome. I'm Claire Wasserman, founder and author of Ladies Get Paid. We are an educational platform, global community, and book all about helping women earn more and live better. And as part of that mission, I like to invite other female experts on to share their wisdom. And today we have Jazmin Higgins, also known as Budget with Jazmin, who is a personal finance coach and something that she's really psyched to talk to y'all about. And I'm also very excited is why budgeting does not and should not feel constricting. In fact, it should be liberating. This is a way to financial freedom. Something that I really like that Jazmin does is she really creates a safe space where you can openly discuss your financial struggles and goals without fear of judgment. I know she does one-on-one coaching. She also has programs. She's got tools. She knows herself best. So I'm going to go ahead and throw the microphone over to her. Welcome, Jazmin. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm honored. I've read your book, and I am always promoting it to my clients, especially when they need to do salary negotiations. So thank you for creating a space where we can learn and feel confident and earn that money.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I start with like, how do we earn more money? And then I realized, oh my gosh, are we teaching women what to do after they get the paycheck? Because that's important too. So really glad to have you on. If you want to go into more detail, maybe about what you do specifically, and then we'll back up with like how you got here, your personal story, why you're so passionate about personal finance.
Yeah, thank you. I am a personal finance coach. So what that means is that I literally help anybody that is earning an income on how to manage their money. Sometimes that means paying off debt a little bit faster, building up a credit score, saving up for major expenses like a payment on a house, getting ready for a new house, a new car. Maybe a child is coming into the picture. Maybe a pet child is coming into the picture. I help prepare my clients for all of those different life adventures. The way people work with me is they hire me as their coach, and we do a full session where it's like a discovery where people tell me their whole financial puzzle, and I help put the puzzle pieces together, create a financial plan that works best for them. And then about every 3 months, we go and tailor that financial plan. We'll see what works, what doesn't work, and adjust as necessary. What people typically experience with working with me is that within the first 3 to 6 months, they see a jump in their credit score. They see lower credit utilization ratios. They see that they're finally starting to hit some of their goals. Their savings increase, liabilities decrease, and overall, the mindset of what money can do and how far it can take you starts to feel a little bit more tangible. Some of the things that my clients experience after working with me for some time is when they start to be able to use their money in things that they actually value, it starts to create kind of this freedom. So where budgeting is constraining and it feels tight and it feels limiting, eventually, once the budget starts working in your favor, you start seeing benefits of being able to budget, live on a controlled system where you are telling your money what to do.
Love it. How did you get into this field?
Great question. So I actually used to work in government. I had a very good career in human resources. And it just so happened that one day, one of my coworkers was listening to a podcast, and I asked, what she was listening to. And she actually didn't tell me what she was listening to, but I downloaded the app and I started listening to podcasts. And one of the first ones that I listened to was actually Dave Ramsey. And that was the first time that I was ever woken up from, kind of paycheck to paycheck, just letting things happen, sometimes meeting goals, sometimes not being able to achieve goals, to all of a sudden having some sort of a plan and a system that works. So that was years ago. As soon as I found out about it, I obsessed over personal finance, and I felt like a secret had been unleashed. Like there was this secret out there of how people win with money, how people become successful, how people become wealthy, rich, become millionaires. And I was not previewed, like I was not aware of this stuff. So the fact that this information was out there, this information was within my reach, I could not shut up about it. I
Yeah.
was telling everybody and their mothers and my friends and family members, to the point where this was a hobby and that's all it was. And then I became a coach and teaching at different churches for
Okay.
free. And it is just like a fire that lit up inside of me. So then I started working for a company that does coaching all the time for financial coaches. And they gave me an opportunity to start my own business and kind of like just try it out. And I've been doing that ever since. So it's been about a year that I launched Budget with Jazmin and have been working with some of my old clients and then just all of my new clients moving forward. I cannot shut up about it. I finally decided to quit my job about 2 years ago. So that was my, my government healthy salary that, is, you've got your benefits, and it's like, why would we quit that? And it is literally because of this passion.
Yes, amazing. How did you focus on budget, right? Because like personal finance, that can cover so many things. Why for you has budgeting been the core focus?
With budget, you're able to control how long it's going to take you to achieve something. So you could either let things happen to you, or you decide how long it's going to take you to achieve something. So if the numbers don't make sense, you have control over whether or not you're going to increase your salary, take on some hustles, decrease your expenses in order to make that goal happen within the time frame that you want. So that is really the core of everything personal finance related. So if you look at, let's say your retirement, for instance, which is one component of the financial plan, and you see that you are not hitting benchmarks and you may be you may have to work, up until you're 75, 80 years old, and you don't like that number, then you make changes now to make sure that when you hit that age or your retirement goals, you're able to do that. If you wanted to buy a house and you are not sure if you can afford it, then you find out how much that house is going to cost or the mortgage would cost you, and then you either fit it into your budget. If those numbers don't make sense, you have control over increasing your income or decreasing your expenses. So I find that it really is the fundamental piece or the missing piece to make sure everything else aligns, no matter how small or how big that goal is.
Yes. Yeah. So walk me through maybe, going, if you want to take me through as if I were a client with that financial intake, or if we want to just jump to like the budgeting part here of where we could begin as the starting place for putting together a budget that allows us to, as you've said, really be in command, not just let things happen to you.
Okay, so if we were to focus on the budget alone, we would take your income, find out what you bring home, your net after you contribute to your taxes and retirement contributions, and we would work your net. So this is what gets deposited into your bank account. And then we would identify what your fixed expenses are. Fixed expenses, things that typically don't change. You have to pay them. This is like your rent, utilities, car payment if you have them, minimum payments on all your debts, including credit cards, personal loans, whatever that may look like. And then we get an idea of what you think you spend on variables. Variables being your groceries, dining out, entertainment, transportation even. And then we put those two things together. And then the biggest part is your goals. So we identify what are some of your short-term goals and what are some of the long-term goals. We break those down into what needs to be true in order for those goals to make sense. So I'll give you an example. Let's say we are just getting started, you want to be prepared for Christmas, and you don't have a Christmas fund, and you know that you're going to spend $1,000 in December. We are in October of today. So that means we have about 2.5 months in order for you to prepare for December. So that $1,000, we would break it up into 2.5 or 3 months. And then we know that you need to have at least $300 and something, almost $350 every single month in order for you to have that $1,000 in mid-December. So then we would put that as item number one. So everything before we look at fixed and variable, we put your goal first. And then we put your fixed expenses because you need to live, you need shelter, clothing, food, all of that would come after. And then you see like, what does it look like? So we take out your goal, take out your fixed expenses, and it kind of gives you what's left for everything else. And then you break that number down by how much you can afford per week for your variable spending. Most people will see things around 100, 200, 300. If you have a lot of cash flow, then you would see that number increase depending on what your style looks like. That's what you have allowed after you have hit all of your goals. So right now we're using Christmas as an example, but somebody's style might be retirement, maybe hitting an emergency fund, maybe saving for a home down payment. So those goals will change based on your lifestyle. What you see that's left over is yours to spend. If there is nothing there or you're in the negative, that's what we work on during our coaching program. So during the coaching program, you have income goals, you have decreasing expenses, like things that don't add any value to your life. And then we try to, as close as possible, to hit your goals and also give you some wiggle room for your variable spend. And that is kind of like core function of this coaching program, is trying to get you in the green at all times and having you be able to hit those goals at the same time.
Does anything surprise you or surprise them in doing this kind of work? Like, I'm almost curious if this is the first time for a lot of people that they've actually looked at the hard numbers. And if so, does it reflect what their mindsets were coming in?
Yes. So when I first start working with the client, most people don't know how much they're spending on their variable expenses. And so I'll see numbers that just get tossed out. I send them a sheet where they input all the data, where what they think they're spending. And I'll get numbers and I'll give you an example, like $100 for groceries a month, $50 for transportation a month. And once we're done with first, 3 months or so, we actually see that groceries is closer to the 700 or 800. And for somebody who's a single person, they may be shocked and don't even realize how much of their income is tied up with, dining out, how much they spend at the groceries, how much waste they may be doing. Transportation, that is beyond our control if you need to put gas in order to get to work. So some people don't really have a good awareness of where their money is actually going. So that is the most shocking thing in the first 3 months, is just discovering, getting to know what do you value. Money is going to tell you what you value, and then your time also. So if somebody's spending a lot of time traveling, then we know that is one of their values, and that should always be in the budget. If someone is spending a lot dining out or treating their friends and family, we know that generosity needs to be in their budget. So there's things like that. It's just the awareness is the first part of starting to take control.
Do you have any favorite apps or things that you can recommend to help people start tracking this stuff?
Yes. So one of my go-tos and my absolute favorite, it helps with somebody who may have a very messy way of handling cash. And I say messy because sometimes you use cash, sometimes you use Venmo, sometimes you're Zelling a friend back and forth because one person covers it and the other person reimburses them. Things like that is really hard to track with a linking app. And there's one app called the spending tracker app. And this one it's got some manual labor in it because you manually have to indicate what you spent on. But what I love about this is that it's on your phone and you take it with you everywhere you go. So it doesn't matter what you spend on or how you spent it. You can always just indicate on there, and then it starts to tally how much you spent. So if we're using the budget system that I have, which gives you an allotment for every week, it starts to deduct and it gives you what's left over to spend. So let's say we start on Friday, you start tracking. By the time you get to Wednesday or Thursday, you would see that money is very slim, and you would have tracked all of your variable spending. And that is just like very clean. It's a very clean way to just see what is always left over to spend. And we're not looking at the bank account, because ideally, if you're sticking to this, then you would start seeing all your different accounts, and that's not what's available to spend. What's available to spend is what you've allowed yourself on the spending tracker app.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, it's such a fine line and also very personal to make sure that people are checking their numbers and seeing that as empowerment as opposed to anxiety inducing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's rough.
absolutely. Yeah, I would say that there are clients I work with that have never extracted a full report from like their checking accounts and their credit cards. So when we look at it for 1 month, it only gives you a little bit of data. When you look for it,
Mhm.
when you look at this information long term, you get to see like, in 1 year,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, I spent, 43,000 on a mortgage. It's like that those numbers start to set in because it now you're looking at a big scope.
Yeah, yeah. What is like I know that you talk about a goals-based budget. What's the difference between that and other kinds of budgets and why is that the budget you recommend for folks to follow?
Yeah, so a goals-based budget is going to give you a little bit more flexibility on what you choose to spend for variable. Um, the Some of the more common ones that you would hear would be like a zero-based budget. That is giving every single dollar a name, including your groceries, including how much you spend on, miscellaneous. That to me, what I have experienced is there's a little bit more hands-on categorizing to make sure you are within those constraints. It works for a lot of people, especially when the budget is very tight. There are other ones like a 50-30-20. That's sending 50% of your income to fixed expenses, 30 to your needs, and I think it's like 20 for saving. That one also, obviously it's very beneficial, but sometimes we're dealing with people that have a higher net worth or they have higher salaries. So if we say 50% is for your fixed expenses, sometimes they're living way below their means, and that means they could build wealth in other areas. So then there's this pressure that you have to spend half of your income on your necessities. So that's the reason why I typically don't use that. I really prefer the goals-based budget because we're always prioritizing their goals. And in a coaching relationship, we're always trying to achieve something. So you're working for something at all times, and that's why it's my personal favorite.
Nice, nice. Does this might sound like a silly question, but does anyone ever have any trouble identifying their goals if there's nothing that's
Yes.
glaring, like there's no impending thing happening, like a child or maybe massive debt or something? But yeah, I don't know if you have any clients, a personal story you could kind of walk us through of like how somebody determined the best goal and not just I shouldn't say best goal, I should say really maybe priority, right? Because you could have a lot of goals too. How do you decide which goals to even focus on?
Yeah. So I call it pulling teeth from a client when they don't really know what they're working for. And I'll give you an example. A popular one is to save more money.
Okay.
But that doesn't tell us anything. That doesn't tell us what are you saving for, why are you saving it, and how much. So when I get, very general, like this is what I should be working toward. When I get those goals, I generally ask questions more like what's something you've always wanted to achieve, but you haven't been able to.
Mm.
And that's where I start getting to the root causes of like, and I get the most random things like, oh, I've always wanted to learn how to play the guitar.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, why isn't that on your list of goals? And I've always wanted, like, for my New York clients, I would say, I've always wanted to learn how to drive,
Ah,
and one day
yeah.
maybe I want a car. And I'm like, really? Okay, tell me more about that. And then they get all lit up and talk about this one time that they rented a vehicle, they were able to take a weekend getaway with a specific client. Was able to take a weekend getaway with a boyfriend and didn't have to worry about like what time the bus leaves. Am I going to make it on time? Like they just had a little bit more sense of them. So those are the things that sometimes I have to extract out of people. And then I have the opposite. I have the super ambitious ones that there's so many things that they want to achieve, but the income just does not make room for everything that they want. So for those, we have to prioritize what is most important now and what actually can you do now that helps you get to the next level. An example would be somebody who wants to go to graduate school. They want a house, they want a dog, they want babies, they want all the things, right? So then we check to see, like, does graduate school help you get a higher income in order for you to hit these goals all at the same time? If the answer is yes, then that's a priority. So it's like that. So we just every single person is so unique. It's one of the most amazing parts of my job is that nobody is exactly the same. And it's always a challenge. It's always a puzzle that I love to help put together.
Oh my gosh, so good. So we've got about 9 minutes left. I mean, do you want to dig in more to the budget? I mean, you laid out kind of the first steps of how to approach it. I mean, it sounds like it's pretty straightforward. The real nitty gritty comes in that personal coaching. If somebody has to work on increasing their income, whether it's at their current job and or a side hustle, or debt. I don't know. Again, if there's a specific client you want to kind of walk us through of like various aspects of a budget that maybe we could tackle in a little more depth, I think that might be helpful for folks to hear.
Yeah, and I do maybe want to leave with this, and with the importance of an emergency fund. It sounds very basic, extremely basic, right? It's a very should have this. This is one of those that, yeah, we definitely should, especially for this organization. You talked in your book about somebody that had an emergency fund and was able to quit a job that was not beneficial, and having that freedom of being able to walk away from some type of a toxic job, a relationship, roommates, whatever your situation may be. How liberating is it to be able to have a little nest egg that you're able to just get over that major unexpected expense and move on with your life. There was a recent survey actually that was conducted by the Morning Consult. It was very recent, 2023, and there was about 3,000 women that were interviewed, and almost 4% said they would not be able to handle an unexpected expense like that. This is alarming. So that means, there's two of us here. Maybe one of us is very close to not being able to handle an emergency. For the people that are listening, I mean, I don't know who many are on or who would watch this, but that's almost 40% of who would be listening to this would not be able to do that. So if we were to start with just the basics, just your emergency fund, I would say calculate your spending. How much do you spend on your fixed? If you were a bare bones and not able to have some of the things in your expenses, what would you be able to cut out if you needed to, and get an idea of what your minimum variables are? Enough to get to work, enough to cover your food and dining, and some personal care. I would put in personal care, especially if you're going through something, you want to take care of yourself, and multiply that at least by 3. That would be the emergency fund that you need to have. And if we were able to figure out how much that is, divide that number by at least about 1 year, try to get your emergency fund in less than 1 year. That's going to give you the freedom to be able to move to another job and get out of any of, unexpected emergencies. That is the biggest takeaway that I have for this audience.
Okay, great. Do you ever come across folks who are scared of spending and actually need help? They're just living in such a scarcity mindset and it's actually hurting them. They can live a little, or those folks don't typically seek you out?
They do, actually. So it's very rare, though. I would say less than 1% of my total clients have been in that area where they have a giant net worth and they're afraid to spend. What I have seen in this area is that they actually just don't really know what and where they could park their money to make sure that it's still helping them build wealth, and not have that fear. So for those types of clients that do have a high net worth and it's all sitting in a checking account or a savings account in a typical bank, what we do is I educate them on, here's what needs to go to your emergency fund, here's what needs to be for your travel fund, here's for these goals that you told me you can meet, you can actually reach them all at the same time. And then this money that's left over, you need a plan for it, or we need to invest it. And based on your long-term goals, here's what I recommend. So it is rare, Claire, but it does happen.
Okay. So I know you have a tool that can help folks figure out, it's not a salary tool, right? But it's a tool that can, if you're trying to figure out how much you need to be making, you're gearing up for salary negotiation maybe, or talk to me a little bit about what this tool is.
Yeah. So one of the metrics that I give my clients when I start working with them is an income goal. So let's say you have a couple of goals on your list and you've broken up the math and you know how much you need per month, but the math is just not thin. It's not making sense. So there's only one option, and that's to bring in more money. You've already cut out all the fat from the expenses, and all that's left is you just need more cash flow. So in order to make that calculation, what I do is I get the minimum amount that they need for all the fixed expenses, the minimum amount needed for variable spending, and then add on as many goals are priority in this time frame. So the monthly amount or the month contribution from that, and then divide that number by 0.65, and that's the monthly income that that person would need on a monthly basis. That's their gross salary that they would need. You could look at it by an annual if you're starting to look at interviewing for new positions or applying for other jobs. So once you have that number, it's kind of like magic. When given clients this number, almost immediately do they either start seeking out other jobs, they start a side hustle, they reach out to old employers and that they knew that they left in good standing, and see if that company would match that number. And I would say there are more of those clients that I've had that are able to reach that magic number than there are clients that have trouble spending.
Wow. Yeah. Fantastic. I love that. Also, I noticed, I'm going to have you just talk about where people can find you, follow you, and most importantly, pay you in just a second. But I know that you have a podcast as well. It's called Financially Naked, which I love that name. Maybe talk to me a little bit about the podcast, and if you have any sort of favorite episodes or, certain themes or topics that you've covered on the podcast that you want to draw attention to, just as we close up.
Yeah. So actually, when I was working for when I was working for the financial gym, I was part of their podcast, and I loved to be one of the hosts. And I would always have either featured clients or host with other employees of the financial gym. I'm no longer hosting on the Financially Naked podcast, but you could still listen to some of the episodes. Some of the episodes that I did cover was how to talk to parents about their money, especially for a generation that is most likely going to have to help cover their family or their elder expenses as they age. There was another one about the home buying process and getting started and how that works. So there's a couple of episodes I'm very happy about. There's my favorite personally is about generational wealth and kind of like how that works in Hispanic communities, because I am Latina. And so I talked to a client who is Cuban American. And so we talk a little bit about how family finances impact our communities.
Yes.
But aside from that, if anybody did want to reach me individually, my website is budgetwithjazmin.com. I'm also on Instagram at budgetwithjazmin. I do have a TikTok also, and that's Jazmin Coach.
Awesome. And by the way, for everybody watching on our YouTube and Facebook pages, come on over to the Ladies Get Paid LinkedIn page, because after this recording, Jazmin's actually going to hop back in, comment on it with those links. Also, you should be following our page anyway, because we've got great updates, including upcoming events, other lives we're doing with various coaches. We've got one tomorrow actually about how mental health and business intersect. So we like to do a nice rotation of sort of career, business, wellness, and of course, money and all of the things that go into it. Jazmin, thank you so much. Any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share with folks? No pressure.
Claire, you know what? It's just basically an offer. Anybody who is listening, if they want a little taste of what coaching feels like, I do offer a 20-minute money free, no pressure consultation. Come with your questions ready with some data. So if you just want to have an idea of what it would feel like, book a 20-minute consultation. I don't talk about my services. I literally just answer your questions, whatever that may be. So it's a little opportunity to get a taste of coaching would be like. Also answer any immediate questions you may have, and it's always available to any new clients.
Awesome. That's fantastic. I love to hear it. Thank you so much. By the way, we should do something. Maybe we have a job seeker support group that I do on the first Monday of every month. That's hugely popular and it's free. And maybe we could do something where you're talking about budgeting if you find yourself out of work, specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Well,
Mhm.
where you could be our guest speaker for like, the first 30 minutes, where we'll do a back and forth and people can answer questions and then we'll do breakouts or something.
Yeah,
Really,
definitely.
really
It's
appreciate it.
definitely a very difficult like a situation to be in. So I
Yeah.
would love to talk a little bit about the process and what that would look like.
Awesome. Great. Well, good. Look at that, guys. We're doing some, setting you up for a future event. So that's why you should, again, follow us always on the Ladies Get Paid LinkedIn page. But as well, subscribe to our newsletter, ladiesgetpaid.com/subscribe. We also have a pro membership for less than $15 a month. You get group coaching with me, member matching, opportunities to come and do live. That's ladiesgetpaid.com/join. And I'm Claire Wasserman. Find me on LinkedIn and on Instagram at Claire Gets Paid. Budget with Jazmin, but Claire Gets Paid. There we go. We're a good team. Thank you so much, Jazmin. Super appreciate you and everything you do and the time you spent with us today. Best of luck now. Go get paid.
Thank you for having me. Bye.